No request for a translation this week.
Thank you. This meeting is being recorded or broadcasted. Images and sounds may be captured of those attending the meeting. For board members making motions, please state your name. And I would like to ask Vice President Paceno to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand. Who's got the flag? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Next, we have general public comment. Do we have any general public comment?
Yes, we do, Trustee Good. We have three. We have one general comment and two comments related to item 8B.
Okay, so one and then two related to 8B.
The first comment is from Marla Davis. I was invited to a meeting for parents that had a child with an IEP. I attempted to log into the survey with my info and was unsuccessful, so I'm commenting here. The things discussed tonight, I have a child that attends a special needs class and I have a child in general education kindergarten. The tips provided should not just be for children in special needs classes, but all classes, since learning on a computer is completely different from in-person or in-class learning. One of my children that's in general classroom, her teacher does not seem to have sympathy for parents who are not familiar with most online tools. She seems to think that we all know what we are doing and it's annoying. The next comment is from Andrea Devora. I'm not available this evening, but wanted to send a few comments about me and who I am. I wanted to say hello and that I threw my hat in the ring for a position on GUSD's board candidate for Area 5 here in Gilroy for a myriad of reasons. I don't have school board / district experience, but I have tons of organizing experience. Being new to Gilroy last year was definitely interesting and I had to learn a lot fast. I also believe that to have a voice, you must have a seat at the table. I want to have an impact on my child's education and believe that having a voice and a say is extremely beneficial. I shoot from the hip and value no nonsense approach to making sure those without a voice are heard. While my mom investment is making sure my ASD kiddo clears all the hurdles in front of him, it also involves those coming after him to make sure they don't have the same ones we did. I look forward to rolling up my sleeves and getting to work. Thank you for listening. The next comment is from Michelle Nelson. I'm concerned that the board may appoint someone to fill the seat for trustee Area 5 without conducting interviews and instead rely solely on applications and resumes. The Board of Education meetings are held virtually now, and I wonder why the same approach could not be utilized in learning more about the candidates before a final decision is made. Thank you for your time. This concludes public comment.
Thank you. Next, we have report of action taken in closed session, and there was no reportable action taken in closed session. Next, item number 4, student board member report. Alexis Brembury, Christopher High School. Is she present?
Yes, I'm here.
It is all you.
Okay, let me start sharing my screen. Okay, so my name is Alexis Bembry, and I am the student board rep for Christopher High School, and today I'll also be talking about El Roble. So we're going to start with El Roble. I reached out to their school principal, and they told me 3 super cool things that that have going on. So the first thing is their virtual awards. I'm sure all of you guys are familiar about how most of the elementary schools do periodic awards for their students just to recognize them and their good work in the classroom. So this, for right now, obviously it's done virtual because it cannot be done in person. But I was talking to their school principal and she was saying how she did a class for each grade specifically, and she made sure to have balloons in the background as she read out the names. And she said as she got feedback from all of the kids, they were very excited to see that. So that's one really cool thing that they had going on. Next, they have a student council. And this is something I was impressed with as an ASB student, to see that they have this in an elementary school. They made a Google form, and they nominated some of their students to make up the student council. And right now they are planning some spirit days, like a crazy hair day or a sports day. So yeah, that's something really cool to see. And then the last thing is they're doing a good job of promoting reading still. They have the system of each teacher is gonna, or they are encouraging each student to read outside of class, and then they're offering prizes as incentives that are going to be distributed during material distribution. So as always, they're doing that still. Next up for Christopher High School, we have a few more events. Our very first one is our ASB Elections, and this happened at the beginning of our year. Typically, this happens during last spring, but COVID kind of threw us off a little bit, so we adjusted and we had them at the very start of this year. For our general elections, we had them Monday, August 24th to Friday, August 28th. And then for our freshman ASB elections, we had that just recently, Monday, September 21st to Friday, September 25th. And so normally the way this works is everyone just campaigns on campus. Maybe you buy some snacks to pass out to your friends and you say, hey, vote for me. And you make posters and posters and you just totally deck out the school. And this is a really cool thing, but we didn't have that opportunity this year. So the way we adjusted is everyone made their own website where they made their case and they campaigned for the position they wanted. If you look at this one right here, this is the homepage for my website. This is the homepage for my vice president, Rhea Diokno, for her website. And a lot of these websites had different pages with a lot of different information about what you do on campus, why you want to be the position you are. And then we publicize them through Google Classrooms. So each class, like I'm a senior, so the senior class has their own Google Classroom for just them. Same for the juniors, the sophomores, and the freshmen. And so for everyone, all the officers had their websites published to the class they were campaigning for. So this is an example right here for ASB. Anyone could vote for that one. So this one was posted on all of the Google Classrooms. But yeah, you had a nice look at all the different websites. And there's about 32 people in our ASB. So that's 32 people doing all of this at one time. It's pretty cool. And so these are the winners. These are our results. These are our class officers. I'm sure some of you guys recognize some of the students here. But moving forward, they're in charge of organizing their class. I know the sophomore class right now, they've already had their first class meeting and they've already talked to their advisor. And they're having a class t-shirt contest. Every class has t-shirts that they usually wear, usually during homecoming time, but again, that needs to be adjusted. But they're trying to see who can create the best design, and then whoever creates the best design gets their t-shirt that the rest of their class is going to have for free. So that's pretty cool, and that's something to look forward to. And the rest of the classes are about to follow suit as well. So the next thing that we did, which is pretty cool in my opinion, is our t-shirt design contest. So we, as an ASB, we were able to get these t-shirts for every single student at Christopher High School. And during textbook distribution, at the beginning of the school year, we were able to give them to every single CHS Cougar. And so since everyone had this shirt, we said, okay, we're gonna hold a contest now. Customize your shirt however you like. You could do whatever you want to it and then submit it, and then we'll choose a winner. So the deadline was just this week, so a winner still has to be chosen. And these are just 4 of my personal favorites, but there's more and more. But this was something really fun to see. And it was a good way to still engage our student body, even though we're not on campus. So yeah. Next, we had our club rush. And this is something that I thought was super successful. It was 2 days, Thursday, September 10th to Friday, September 11th. And the way it worked is we reached out to all of our already existing CHS clubs. And we said, hey, just because we're not on campus doesn't mean that you guys need to stop meeting or anything like that. So we said, we're going to give you the opportunity to make your case about why people should join your club. So the way we set it up is each day we had 3 10-minute information sessions. So each club they organized a little presentation, just about 10 minutes long, maybe a little shorter than that to allow for questions. But they said, hey, this is what our club is. This is what we do. This is why you should join. And everyone from CHS was able to access that. And right here, you're looking at the document that was advertised to our student body. It has a bunch of clubs and then clubs descriptions, and then the links to join their information sessions. And so it was 3 per day, so a total of 6. And that's how that went. This is only some of our clubs. I definitely could not fit all of them on one slide. That would be way too much. But it was very exciting to see. And more than that, we rewarded everyone that came with a raffle. We had 3 prizes. These were LED lights. And then this one was a mini waffle maker. And then the 3rd prize was a weighted blanket. So we took the names of everyone who attended at least one session and we put them on the super cool raffle wheel. And then we spun it and advertised it, and the winners got those. So yeah, overall, it was pretty fun. And it was successful too, because altogether, students could attend more than one session because they had 6 opportunities for each club. So if you take the attendance from every single session of every single club, that was more than 600 people, which I found pretty impressive. If you look at the clubs on campus, we had over 30 from that day, but since then people have said, hey, it's pretty cool to have your own club, or maybe can I start my own? So we've had more coming in too. The deadline for getting your new club in is tomorrow, actually, so they're still coming in, but as of Club Rush, it was just over 30. And so for students overall involved in clubs, we have over 300, and a lot of these kids are in more than one. So this is something I'm really proud to talk about, because it's one of our main ways of keeping kids engaged in school and on campus, even though we're not physically there. The next thing we have is Channel C. This is something that I found very innovative. We usually have announcements every day, but we don't have those, needless to say. So we decided we're going to do video announcements every Friday. And so this is like a short 3-4 minute clip that is shown every 4th period on every Friday. And this is just our way of advertising all of our events, like our t-shirt contest that I just talked about, our elections, Club Rush, all the events like that that we're still trying to have. We advertise them this way. And we also read birthdays on this to make sure everyone feels special. So yeah, people say that they look forward to seeing this, and it's nice to see your friends' faces on a giant screen every Friday. So next, we also have Humans of CHS. This is something we usually did during the school year, and we're still continuing to do now. We take teachers and students of Christopher High School, and we just spotlight them. We say, hey, would you like to be a part of Humans of CHS? And they say, yes, of course. And so we interview them, and we just ask them a few questions about who they are, what they like to do, their hobbies, and we put it on our CHS Instagram. And people get to find some new people that maybe they were not super aware of before. Next, usually we have lunchtime activities on campus. That was a little bit more difficult to figure out, but we're making it work with movie nights and other things that we can do. So one thing that we've been doing a lot of is we've been having these class Kahoots. We had one this week. It was just about CHS trivia. One of the questions was, true or false, CHS started off with only freshmen and sophomores. That one was true. But this is for each of the classes, and it's just a fun game activity. It's not too big of a deal, it's just a little opportunity to still connect with your friends at Christopher outside from just your class. And so we've done the same thing with Jeopardies, and then we've had movie nights. I know 2 of the classes watched Princess and the Frog, and last time the senior class watched Shrek. So this week is actually our kindness week. There's a lot of different things that we're prompting the CHS kids to do. This has been the virtual background that's been on my screen all week. I changed it for this meeting though. But it has a few messages about things you can do all week to be kind. Our hospitality committee actually went to school and put up a very nice Be Kind poster and cups. I know when I had my first volleyball workout, which was very exciting, and I drove past it, it was very nice to see. And so I appreciated that a lot. So yeah, some of the things are like send a kind message to your teacher on Zoom or email. And the teachers really appreciated that a lot. It was happy to hear that they felt very loved and very appreciated. And that is the goal. So it was nice to hear that. There are some other things like bake a dessert or cook a meal for your family, do a sibling's chore or surprise your parents by doing a chore, text more friends and give them a compliment, and write a thank you letter to a friend or family member. And yeah, so far, that's the gist of what we've done. As we have our class officers now, we're thinking of more things we can do moving forward. But as of right now, that is all the main stuff we have going on.
Well, that's great. Is that your report?
Yes, that's my report.
Okay, it's hard sometimes. We're doing this virtually. Might be something else. I don't want to cut you off. Well, thank you. That was an excellent report. Congratulations on your election as ASB president.
Thank you.
I was so excited to hear your report. I completely skipped over item number 3B, which is approval of the agenda. So I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the agenda, James.
Linda, second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Paceno.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item number 5, superintendent's report. Dr. Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Good. And Alexis, that was a great report. And I love seeing those big Be Kind letters. I drove by yesterday. It's very cool. Well, last board meeting, I gave you a longer superintendent's report than I normally did because I wanted to update you on what's happening with the reopening discussion, which is going on in every district right now. And I let you know that one of the things we would be doing is sending out a survey to staff, students, and parents. And I wanted to let you know that went out on Tuesday, September 29th. And we already have a lot of responses. Melanie Corona was filling me in and my subcommittee on that today. So we already have quite a few responses, but the deadline for completing the survey is next Wednesday. And I want to encourage everyone to please complete the survey. There are questions about our current program, distance learning, and there are questions about possibly reopening at some point down the road. So we really want everybody's participation in this survey. So students grades 5 through 12 should complete it. All parents should complete one for each child, and obviously all of our staff. Last Friday was a staff development day, and I was able to drop in on many of the sessions. It actually worked better than when I used to drive around to sessions because I spent a lot of time driving from session to session. So it was great. I thought the workshops were very good. They range from, sort of strategies for how to do distance learning better and make it more engaging to, presentations about our new science curriculum. And I thought the presenters were doing a great job. The staff were very engaged, and there were a lot of strategies I learned just by watching how the presenters were engaging our staff. On the 22nd, I told you in an earlier report, in early June, I was one of about 4 or 5 superintendents that spoke to the Board of Supervisors about schools reopening and what's the challenges, what do we need. So we spoke to them in June. They asked us to come back. And so on September 22nd, 4 other superintendents and I, as well as some of the other agencies that provide services to school-age children, talked to the supervisors about what our needs are and what our challenges are as we try to work our way through all of these issues related to COVID-19. On last Friday, I was able, along with Alvaro and Paul Nato, to take some of our city officials through Brownell. And they were very impressed with everything they saw, I think, but particularly with our security measures, our cameras. and they were just very complimentary. You know, they really appreciate our turnaround area on First Street for big vehicles like fire trucks. So it was a very positive meeting and tour of Brownell. That same day after we finished the Brownell tour with the city officials, we went to Campbell. And I'd actually been to the site with the superintendent about a year ago, never realizing that we would be revisiting the site because our architects have done a lot of work there. And I think a bunch of us went, by the way, a lot of us went, including the principal and vice principal of South Valley Middle School, because we wanted to see some of the features of this building as it relates to the preliminary designs that we are working on for South Valley. So we went to this site first, and it has some incredible features that if we can afford, we'd like to consider. And then afterwards, we went to a second site in Campbell to see their MPR, because those of you who are familiar with South Valley, it used to be a high school. So the MPR and the gym there are much bigger than you would traditionally find at a middle school. And we thought it was important, our architects thought it was important that we visit this MPR in Campbell, which they've actually built at a number of their campuses, and is a beautiful MPR. So I thought we had a great visit to Campbell. It was well worth all of us driving over there and socially distancing and wearing our masks. And we came back with a lot of ideas. On Tuesday, board members, union leaders, cabinet members, and I attended a webinar put on by the Public Health Department and the County Office of Education. As I mentioned at our last board meeting, that they were issuing revised guidelines for school districts. This was originally issued on June 30th, and they revised and updated the guidelines. And we were all able to participate in a webinar and have sort of a walkthrough of what had changed between the original document and the current document. So that, I think that was valuable for all of us to participate in that webinar. And we are using this document, as we have all along, in our reopening planning committee. We had today another internal, as I've told you before, we have an internal team of architects, administrators that meet in between the site committee, larger committee meetings at South Valley, about South Valley. So we had an internal meeting today and continue to talk about various aspects of the preliminary design that we hope to have to the board within definitely by sometime in November. We're going to be talking with the facilities committee as a follow-up to our meeting today about some of the concepts that we discussed. It's getting very exciting. It's starting to feel like this is really going to happen in the next year or so. So I think the facilities committee and the site committee are going to be really pleased with some of the drawings that we went over today that had a lot more detail than this very conceptual drawing of South Valley's new design. Today, my committee, Anna and I co-chair the Health and Wellness subcommittee of our reopening planning committee, and the other two subcommittees are also meeting this week. So the three subcommittees are meeting, and in the subcommittee today, I went over and then Anna and I facilitated some groups, two groups about, for instance, what's the readiness level of even our committee members for any thoughts of bringing students back to campus, and what are some of the areas that we need to address before we can bring students back on any campus. So I thought it was a productive meeting today. We got some really good input from the Health and Wellness Committee, and there's two nurses on that committee. Obviously, that's our task, is health and wellness. I've continued doing Friday superintendent's letters, not every Friday because we don't always have a lot of new information, but last Friday I did one, and the first part again was on the topic of readiness, if at all, for any kind of in-person learning. Continued my fall site visits, and I want to appreciate board members who have come with me. So I really appreciate BC, Linda, Enrique, James have all been now to at least one site visit, and some of you have been on multiple site visits. And I think you all agree there's nothing like being there and seeing it in action and seeing how it's working. And we've been so impressed with the high level of implementation of distance learning and instruction through that model that we're seeing at every site. We've been very impressed. And upcoming fall visits, if you want to join me, are Luigi and Rod Kelly. In the next week, I have a principals meeting next Thursday, so I don't have a site visit that day. I've had a lot of virtual meetings, a continued weekly meeting of superintendents with the County Office of Ed and Public Health Department. As I mentioned, we have a principals meeting monthly, one coming up next Thursday. And there are a number of upcoming events. Two are Cal Soap events, and that's this Saturday. There's an annual Cal Soap orientation honoring my husband, and I will be attending at least the first couple hours of that. It's a well, almost all day event. And then, as you know, every year Cal Soap has a college night where lots of colleges are invited to come speak to students, and they are going to be doing that virtually also. Both of these are virtual. And then our next staff development day, there will be no school for students, is a month away on November 6th. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your report, Dr. Flores. Next, we have the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
This is James. I move to approve the consent agenda.
This is Linda.
Okay,
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Pisano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item number 7, public hearing on certification of sufficiency of textbooks, resolution 20/20-2102.
Good evening, President Good, members of the board, and Dr. Flores. We bring to you annually this resolution certifying that there are sufficient textbooks or instructional materials for each student in the district. That includes our digital materials as well as the hardbound materials that we have been delivering or students have been picking up at their school sites.
You know, we did get a question about this in advance, and I just want to say I personally witnessed the distribution of the textbooks to students and instructional materials, and every site has a method to doing this. But you know, I've been board members have seen some of the materials in the front office. They all have a different system, but they are delivering them to students.
Are there any board questions or comments? Seeing none, this is an action item.
President Good, I believe it's a public hearing.
Oh yeah, that's right. Is there any public comment? Do we have any public comment?
I don't believe so. Natalie?
No public comment on this item.
Comments.
Okay.
All right, well then I will close the public hearing. So I'm not clear on yeah, this is a roll call vote. So it is an action item.
This is Linda. Move approval.
PC second.
Roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Pisano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item number 8A, approval of purchase of 6,048 Chromebooks from Converge One, not to exceed $3,292,168.32. and this is listed as an information item.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Flores. Thank you for having me tonight. I want to start by giving a little bit of background and share that our district has used Chromebooks since 2013, and because they are a cost-effective device for daily use and testing by students. And in September of 2019, the board approved the purchase of 3,888 Chromebooks to replace the Chromebooks that reached the auto update expiration date in 2019. As a reminder, every Chrome device receives regular updates from Google until it reaches its auto update expiration date. It's a mouthful for me, so I'm just going to keep it as AUE for short. And for the district, that AUE is between June and September 2021 for 6,048 devices. Under regular circumstances, our timeline to present this item would have been around springtime. However, the Chromebooks we own today cannot efficiently multitask. And with the current distance learning platform, we are forced to look at alternative devices that are better suited for our current needs. Also, I want to mention that the current supply and demand has increased and manufacturers have their own set of challenges to produce the devices. We also have experienced lead time between 2 weeks up to several months, and it is because of these reasons that we're here today with this item. Again, the ideal time would have been spring, pre-COVID. We requested quotes from several vendors and we briefly evaluated Windows and Apple devices as well. But due to the current constraints, mainly time, we were not able to fully prepare and bring forward a recommendation for a Windows or an Apple environment. I want to mention that changing a platform requires changes in the support model and a plan to be able to properly manage and support and sustain the technology. Usually, you do a proof of concept. Yes, we are familiar with the technology, but there's a lot that goes with it. And this proof of concept takes between 3 and 6 months. And again, unfortunately, this is time we don't have at the right now. A few years ago, we standardized on the HP G4 Chromebook. Today, we bring forward the recommendation to purchase a different model that is better suited for the current needs, and we will be addressing some performance issues with the physical device. However, this will not address the infrastructure challenges of the service providers or the features not supported in Chrome OS. So for example, a user can experience that a poor connection. Some of the issues that we experience today are because of the limitations of the Chromebooks. And some of them are because, maybe the internet service provider or the router that people have at home. So those issues we will not be addressing again is the performance issues with the physical device. So we are proposing the purchase of a device that has a more robust hardware specifications. Like for example, the Chromebook that we currently have has 4 gigs of memory. The new Chromebook would have 8 gigs of memory. Current model has 2 cores. The new model has, or the model that we are recommending has 4 cores. Current model has 32 gigs of storage versus the model that we're recommending has 64 gigs of storage. Those, that makes a difference in how the device performs. Also, the physical device is a little bit more robust than what we have. It has a different type of screen. It is multi-touch. The current model, it's single touch, has rounded corners that will also help, and it's a little bit more rugged. And I will turn this. Oh, I do want to mention also that, you know, when we requested quotes or when we received quotes for Windows devices, we received a lower end device and a higher end device, and that's why you see the difference in prices. You know, they are because of the hardware specifications. Now, the lower end devices, we cannot plan to use those devices more than 3 or 4 years, right? And the Chromebooks that the Chromebook model that we are proposing will reach the AUE in the year of 2026. So they do have a longer life than expectancy life than you know, some of those lower models on the Windows side. As far as the MacBook, we looked at the base model for the MacBook. For the iPad, we had a lot of questions and we had a lot of concerns, mainly because if we replace a laptop type device with a tablet, then we have a lot of peripherals and other things that we need to worry about. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mesa so he can address funding sources.
Thank you, Maribel. Naturally, 3.3 million is a lot of an investment in technology, and I think we all recognize that. However, we do have the one-time coronavirus relief fund, and we are really looking forward to spending those funds because the federal government wants us to spend these funds by December 30, 2020. Otherwise, we do lose the opportunity to tap into these one-time funding sources. So we do not know how long we're going to be in distance learning. No one knows that at this point. And given that we do have some existing limitations in the original Chromebooks that we're using, the higher specs on these devices that we are recommending today would sufficiently meet the demands of distance learning for our students, however long this lasts. And roughly about 90% of the costs will be funded by the Corona Relief Fund, the Coronavirus Relief Fund, and the rest of the 10% we're looking to a subset of the Learning Loss Mitigation Funds called LCFF or P98, essentially another subset of the one-time funding that we have been provided by the federal government, the stimulus bill that was signed into law.
Are there any board comments or questions? Trustee Fiak?
I have a question. So I'm assuming that with this purchase of the 6,000 Chromebooks, we'll have a 1-to-1 ratio. Do we need more just in case, you know, the ones that we already have out there for students aren't working properly because they're an older model? I just want to make sure that we're purchasing, because we have the money now and it's not coming out of general funds. I just want to make sure that we're purchasing enough to meet the needs of the future as well.
Right now, we have a little bit over 5,000 devices checked out to students. So if we were to purchase one device for every student, the answer is right now, right, to replace and issue one for every single student. So the answer is no, we would not have enough with 6,048 devices. However, not every student in the district has requested a Chromebook. So the 6,048 devices would be enough to swap or exchange, you know, what we have, that the Chromebooks that students currently have at home with these ones. And it would leave us, you know, a few devices to be able to swap or issue in case the need we have additional needs, or if, you know, something happens to a Chromebook, then we would have a spare device.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other board questions or comments on this issue? Mr. Pace.
Thank you for the report. Talk to me about how we would distribute these. Would we do a full recall of the older ones and then swap them, or is this supplemental, or where are these going in the short term?
It's going to be a combination of both. I recently met with the elementary school principals, and we briefly talked about this. If the item gets approved, then we will need to come up with a plan to be able to swap the Chromebooks in an orderly and strategically way at the elementaries, and we would have the same conversation with the middle schools and the high schools. We cannot force people, to come and pick up a different Chromebook, but we certainly would offer it and be ready to do so if they choose to swap the device.
Thank you. And I appreciate looking at other options, Windows and Mac and iOS. I totally agree. Changing horses right now without doing an extensive beta test seems risky to me, but I just want to make sure. Ed services people, are you happy with Chrome? Is that meeting our needs? And is that a horse that we can run our system on here?
Well, I'd say, for the most part, yes. It can't do everything, right? They can't do everything. We do hear that there are some issues with the Chromebook just because I don't understand the technology behind it, but they're just not capable of doing some of the things that we want them to do. But in terms of what our students need right now, it seems like the majority of programs they're able to access. They're, relatively affordable, right? And seem to be fairly durable in terms of students' use because the students are using them daily. I don't know if Deb has an additional comments about any programs.
Kathleen pretty much covered it. There is no perfect device that will meet all of the needs throughout the district or one perfect platform. So, it's a matter of getting the students what they need now so that they can continue with their distance learning. And so we can look at how it will be utilized as we go back into a brick and mortar setting, and then continuing for us to work together to look and see how we can best meet the needs of all programs. Because as you know, technology is pretty much obsolete within about 3 years. So what we decide today will be different than what we will need a couple of years from now. So we constantly have to be looking at what we have and how we can make sure that we are meeting the needs of all students in all programs.
Mr. Mesa, I appreciate that we have one-time funds from various parties to make this happen. That's a big relief. So this isn't coming from our general fund. I think Ed Services just mentioned, they can't do everything. I bet you adding more memory will certainly increase our options on some of these things. I know Zoom can be a memory hog, so having additional resources might be a useful thing there to help us get through this. So thank you all very much for the reports and answers.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Pacino.
My question is more, tonight is an informational item. So I assume then at the next board meeting, it will be an action item, and then they have to come in and then you have to set them up. So when realistically will they be do we think they will be in kids' hands?
That is a question very hard to answer because manufacturers usually do not give us a lead time until we place the order, because right now everybody is trying to purchase devices, right? It does not matter what platform they are. The demand has increased quite a bit on all technology items, as other items as well. So they might have inventory today, but that might change by tomorrow or Monday, right? It depends on who orders what and what gets approved in, you know, other organizations and districts. And so we have, just to give you an example, we submitted an order for laptops, and you know, they took one time they took 2 weeks, and then the second time we had to wait 4 months, you know, to get the laptop. So we really, you know, it's hard for me to give you a realistic expectation since we really don't know.
Given the time crunch, can we make this an action tonight rather than waiting?
It wasn't noticed as an action item, so no, you can't.
I have a couple questions, Trustee Diaz.
Trustee Diaz, please go ahead.
So this is one of those things where I definitely would not want to impose on IT on what my preference or any of our preferences are for that matter, because ultimately you guys do support it. And so I really appreciate that. But having said that, I do see an opportunity here in kind of going the way that the technology that we would want for ourselves. And personally, the Chromebook OS is not something that I use. And it's also, the question is like, what technology would our students most likely be able to use? And then even taking it a bit further as well, like what technology would they use in their next phase of technology of career or education? And then what technology fits into their existing ecosystem? And they're most likely to use either Android or iOS or iPad or PadOS for that matter. So those are some considerations that I would like to do. I actually personally appreciate that it's an informational item today and then an action item, because I think some of the questions that I'll point out will kind of bring up some info to look at. So the other part is like what, as a technologist, is like, I appreciate having to deal with one technology, but I also like learning about different technology. And so that would be something that's in your lap as well, is like, maybe this is that opportunity to broaden your technology experience and exposure and bring online MacBook Pros and iPads and that kind of stuff. It's something that really interests me as well. The other thing is that, and this is going to be a lot of information, so we'll look at it, we'll revisit. Apple just happened to have a new product release cycle with iPads and maybe 2 weeks ago. So I wonder if these iPads take that into consideration for two reasons. One is that obviously new products are in the pipeline. And the second one is that the previous products can also go on sale, and they wouldn't be nothing more than 2 weeks old, which makes them a really good bargain. The other thing is 10.2-inch iPads are great, but if you just go to the 9.7, which is half an inch shorter in measuring diagonally, you get almost a 50% savings there. And that's just the commercial rate. So I'm wondering if there could be a savings opportunity there, maybe even bypassing Converge One and going directly to Apple. And so that's yet one more option, or two more options there, that they have their own IT link and support crew, as well as ConnectEd, which is a whole different program that deals and supplies computers to schools, districts that they deem in need. And I don't know if we fit that criteria. They tend to go mostly to Central Valley and Midwest towns and stuff like that, but it's worth a look. So those are a couple options I've mentioned. If we were to stick with Chromebooks and that option, the Lenovo 500E 8 gigabyte, I am a little concerned that looking at it, it's already a discontinued item on Lenovo's website. And also that the release date was 2018. So depending on how long we think computers can last, we're a good, if we're really 2 or 3 years old and we're really 66% of the life cycle into it. But even at a 10-year life cycle, which is really extreme, that's already a 20% into its life cycle. So those are a couple of things that I just wanted to mention. You know, it's well known that iPads and MacBooks are kind of self-sustained, so that besides the initial setup of IT by your end, it may be that they can be a little bit more self-sustained by the end student or staff member. Those are other things to think about as well. Those are just some food for thought, kind of more rhetorical than anything, and some food for thought to take back into the planning session. If there are any questions with that, I'd be happy to help out.
I want to, tell you that I appreciate your comment, Trustee Diaz, and I do want to share with the board that in 2019, or a reminder maybe, in 2019, when we presented the item to purchase 3,888 Chromebooks, at that time, the board expressed an interest in looking at a different platform, right? Mainly, I think that everybody, but mainly Trustee Good and Trustee Pace. And I'm going to tell you that I was very excited, right? Because, we had an opportunity to look at options and evaluate and see if, the Chromebooks was still meeting our needs, was it not, and that opens the door for a lot other things. And, and I was very excited. However, we didn't know that we were gonna be in the middle of a pandemic, right? That was pre-COVID, and our original plans, we were gonna take a look at, the options and present a full plan for professional development, training, and everything that goes with it. Management, right, by IT, our ability to support efficiently and these devices and support the end users so they could use the technology when they need to use it, not when we have the time, to support it. But that was pre-COVID. Then, for all of us, things change in March, and we have, it is. I'm not complaining about it, right? Because it happened to all of us. I'm not, alone here. Jose and I have been working around the clock since March 13th. We had a very small window where we were able to decompress at the end of June, the first week of July, and we were moving in a direction. And within 24 hours, I was in a meeting planning for, opening a hybrid model, at the beginning of the school year. And within 24 hours of that meeting, our plan completely changed, and it's not our fault. But my point with that is that we ran out of time. We were planning again to do this during the summer and do it right, to be able to be successful. And but life threw a curve at us, and we are where we are. And if it wasn't because of the current need, we would not be here today. This is something, again, that we had a plan to present to the board around the springtime. And that's why we're here with the recommendation, of that model. So
I appreciate that for sure. Technology is one of those things that we like it to be invisible until it's not, and then everybody's calling and raising, and Wi-Fi is down and Bluetooth, and all of a sudden everybody's an expert at that. So I totally appreciate all the work that you guys have done, and the PIO for that matter. And there's a lot of infrastructure in the background. So that is a approach that I'm coming at it as well. And lately, despite all our situations that we've been in, I've kind of been enabled by that. Where's the opportunity in this? And so there may be a silver lining there, and there may be the opportunity to get exposure to different technology, barring the cost. I mean, I see that as well. I can totally see that on a per unit basis. I can see the price, and and then extrapolate to 6,000 units or what have you. So, but food for thought, just something to take back and think about and bounce ideas around.
Any other board questions or comments?
Just to make sure I understand, this money needs to be spent this calendar year. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, Trustee Pace, yes.
Okay. Okay. If we place the order, can we pay them even if they can't ship yet?
We can cut the check and they'll be on our ledger and hold the check till we receive the items.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay. Well, speaking for myself, this was a big deal when we approved the last Chromebook purchase. I wasn't in favor of the last Chromebook purchase. It was an emergency then. It's being presented as an emergency now. And before I go into where I am on this issue, I want to acknowledge the extraordinary contribution that the entire IT department has done in addressing a bunch of unprecedented, unknown needs pre-COVID-19. You guys, Maribel and your staff have went above and beyond, and I want to acknowledge that and appreciate it. That said, this is a $3.3 million expenditure, which I agree with almost all of Trustee Diaz's points. Chromebooks are not the best technology out there. I wasn't aware that this was a product that we're being recommended to purchase that's already been discontinued or been on the market for 2 years. That sets me even more against it. And I agree with Trustee Diaz. It's an opportunity. The problem we had last time is Google, Chrome, whoever's in charge of this, they had a gun to our heads because they had an off switch. They're going to turn the computers off. And so we were up against between a rock and a hard place. We had to spend, it was in excess of $1 million in. Now we're talking about spending another 3.3 million, again, with a bunch of old computers with an off switch. That's not okay with me. If we're going to spend $3.3 million, and I acknowledge it's not the fault of anybody. It's not the fault of the IT department. However, if we're going to spend $3.3 million on old laptops with an off switch, maybe we can spend $100,000 or some amount of money and hire another employee, hire an independent contractor, commission an investigation on this so we can come up with a better option. And no, we're not taking any action on it, but I'm not in support of spending $3.3 million on old Chromebooks with an off switch. That's just where I'm at personally. Are there any
Every hardware gets obsolete.
I want to just comment on the model. They are different models of or variations of the 500E. The first generation, it is obsolete, but not the one that we are purchasing, and that, you know, we're verifying that right now just to make sure, but they are different iterations. And again, the one that we selected, it is not obsolete and will be supported until 2026. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Pacino.
Thank you. Two things. One, I understand about not wanting to, to get the biggest bang for our buck for 3.3 million. I absolutely understand that. I am concerned I don't want to change horse in the middle of a river, a roaring river, where our staff has just gotten used to the platform that we are using now with digital learning, distance learning. And to change that on staff concerns me, number one. And the other question I have is, what about eventually we're going to have to do CASP again? And correct me if I'm wrong, but we originally went with Chromebooks, not with the idea of distance learning, but because the state mandated that we take CASP on computers. And this was the easiest way, cheapest way to do that. So will CASP accept other platforms?
CASP does accept other platforms. It does have also minimum requirements in other platforms that we do have to meet, but it does. We just have to be, we would have to be careful on what we select to be able to meet those requirements, not just the first year, but you know, the
going out.
Yes, at least the years that we plan to keep the hardware.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to lose sight of that.
Trustee Fiak?
So, I mean, I think I hear Maribel, you loud and clear that we really can't change. And I agree, we can't change midstream right now just because we are kind of in an emergency situation. But I think from what I understand from the rest of the board is we are definitely interested in getting a different platform for our students. And you probably have the next 4 years to figure out what that is and how we can do it well. Because I do agree with Trustee Diaz. You know, if we're preparing our students for the future workplace, most workplaces don't use Google Chrome, right? They're using Windows, Outlook, those types of things. So when they are so used to Google and they go into the workplace, it's a hard learning curve for them. So we want to make sure that that's as, you know, soft as possible. So I think I would definitely be, not now, but I would definitely be interested in looking at a different platform.
More comment, Trustee Good.
Trustee Diaz?
Yeah, and I just want to kind of point out that I don't see it as changing a horse mid-race. It's more like getting multiple points of failure. You're kind of making the failure points something else than just one. And that's kind of how I see it. And it's kind of more of a, you have supply chain management, I guess. Supply chain management has that idea that you get multiple sources for any given thing. And it buys you a couple of options there. One is if one system goes down for some reason, manufacturer in this case, you can always kind of go the other way. You can also provide, it's not a binary option for that matter either. And it allows the student also to have an option or the staff member to have an option. And then one other thing that it does give you is a little bit of leverage as well, in that if for some reason some vendor has a different price point on a product, you can always mention, well, I am getting this other price point with a different product. So it's kind of a little bit more of that kind of mindset.
Can I say something? I really was trying not to weigh in on this. You know, I'm a Mac enthusiast. I have an iPad and a Mac Pro. I always have been. When I came to the district, I am trying to push the district in the direction of having two platforms. And there were a lot of reasons it didn't happen. So it's ironic that I'm going to say something that probably doesn't support that right now. I am really concerned about changing the computers with 5,000 to 6,000 kids and their parents right now. It has taken us all this time with lots of intensive support to get everybody up and running on the Chromebook. And I really worry about changing direction and the impact it's going to have on distance learning. It's hard to imagine how we're going to train 5,000 kids at home and their parents how to use these new computers and new platforms. It'll be a little bit of a stretch just going up to the better version of Chromebook. That's the way I look at it. But I think we as a staff really need to talk about that and come back and talk to you next time about how we would even do that. Is introducing a whole new system that our kids aren't familiar with, because we've always had Chromebook at this time, concerns me. So I really would like to have us talk internally and come back and share with you our thoughts about that. I would normally jump up and down about going to, you know, some type of MacBook, but right now, anything that's going to set us back right now, I'm going to be really concerned about. And things are, as we've said, finally working really well across the district. It has taken a lot of time, effort, not just IT, but as I've said before, it's been all hands on deck. Our site staffs, people that don't even normally help with technology are doing it to make sure this works. So I am a little worried. I'd have to talk more with Maribel and the rest of our team about how would we approach that task of distributing and training people how to use a different computer, which even though, yes, it can do all the same jobs and probably better, that's a new learning curve, and I'm worried about it affecting what we're doing. So I'd like to have us address that specifically. How would we train people, and not just the students, but the staff and the parents?
All valid points. And if we hadn't had this exact same conversation a year and a half ago, I would be a lot more agreeable.
Sure.
Yeah. We did. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Any other?
Sorry. I just think that would be way too much change for our kids and I mean, I would love to have a different platform. However, I think that would be way too much change for our kids and our parents. And right now we're all struggling. So I don't want to add another different change into their lives.
Maybe it would be helpful to at the next meeting, describe exactly what that change is, because I don't see, you have different type of computers and operating systems all over the world. Most of what they're using is web-based. It doesn't matter, in my view, what system they're on. What I'm looking at is how much are we spending, what are we getting, and how long is it going to last? And where's the $3.3 million or $4 million or whatever it is going to come the next time? Are we going to have one-time funds then, like we do now? I don't know. I just like to buy something that's going to last.
I have degrees in computer science, and every time I touch a Mac, I don't know what the Finder does, right? Changing courses is hard. I would love it if we all switched to Linux, right? This is my dream for the district, to get that in the hands of kids. That'll last forever, but I don't see that happening. I think we've got a horse that right now, changing 5,000 remote students who barely have internet to new computers just sounds like a bad move on my part.
Yeah, I guess for me is I wasn't proposing the change. I was just kind of pointing out the merits and the faults, for that matter, with the Converge One, the Lenovo 588 gigabyte. It may be that there's a different SKU that's totally available, but if you do Google it, it does show up as discontinued by Lenovo. But I believe, Maribel, that there's a newer model that's only being sold. But it would be good to confirm that it isn't 2 years into its Chrome OS support cycle, because that would be really important. And in terms of the iPads, it was more pointing out that there is a smaller version, the 9.7 inch, that is 50% the cost of that. Linux is not a good option.
Trustee Doyle?
Yes, I believe that changing right now would be very bad, because I don't know computers myself. But I think if we waited until we were back in the classroom where the students can have more help, that would be the time to change from one system to another. I really think that changing right now would really hurt our students and some of our parents. And, you know, I'd hate to get eggs thrown at me every time I go downtown. So just my theory is just wait until we have a better time to change, when we can really support our students in the classroom and not try to do it from home. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just want to let everybody know that Jose did check on the model for me as you know, you were having a discussion, and the SKU that we have came out last year. And and it is the one that is discontinued is the first generation. We are using the second generation, not using, we have in the quote the second generation. And I will send all this information to you.
Great.
But so one last comment is like, that is what we would want is your input, Maribel and Jose. We want something that you're both excited as well to try to learn with and support. You know, it's definitely the case that autonomy, mastery, and independence is a great source of success in the workforce. And this is definitely your area of expertise. So your input is very valuable.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice? Okay, thank you very much for your report, Maribel.
Thank you.
Next, we have item number 8B, appointment of a trustee to trustee area 5. This is an action item. And we had a discussion at an earlier board meeting about holding this because of the failure to elect a candidate in trustee area 5. There's going to be a vacant seat on the Board of Education in that trustee area following the November 2020 general election. The Board of Education is required by Education Code Section 5328 to make an appointment to the seat prior to the November general election. The district published a notice of the board's intent to make an appointment and invited eligible candidates to apply. The district received 4 letters of interest along with resumes, all of which have been provided to the board. Although bylaw 9223 describes a process that includes interviews of candidates, because of the limited number of interested persons and the meeting limitations, it is recommended that the board review and discuss the letters of interest and resumes and determine whether or not a decision can be made at this meeting on an appointment. And so I would open it up to the board at this point.
This is James. I would like to recuse myself from this conversation.
That is a good idea because you are one of the applicants. Anybody who's not recused, would they like to weigh in?
I would like to propose that we can do the interviews because I can't, I don't feel confident making a decision based on something that's on paper.
Any other board comments?
This is Trustee Diaz.
Yes, Trustee Diaz.
So I just want to recognize the people, the participants that did come up for seeking a position on the board. I think it's a big step, and that's fantastic. We welcome it. It took me a while to do it. I do want to remind them that this happens every 2 years, so half the board turns over every 2 years for that matter, even though it's a term for 4 years, obviously. Independent of the outcome today, by all means, come back in 2 years. My term will be up by then, as well as others. So I'm really excited by that. I also want to kind of remind them that this is kind of the situation that we kind of expected or anticipated once we went to districting. It's a good, bad thing. We figured some districts may have over-representation or multiple candidates, I should say, not over-representation. And then some districts may have no representation or candidates for that matter. So we're just simply going through the growing pains as well. So we appreciate your patience.
Speaking for myself, I've been on the board when we've made appointments to board positions, and we've done everything. We've had interviews, we've accepted letters of interest, we've made appointments just without asking for really any input, depending on what the situations were and depending on what the vacancies was. And although I appreciate Trustee Fiak's comments about having interviews, I'm not sure what the point would be talking to people additionally at this point. I mean, for myself, I have all the information I need to make a decision, and it would be my recommendation to suspend board bylaw 9223's provisions regarding candidate interviews and nominate and vote on the appointment of a board member for trustee area 5 for a 4-year term beginning on December 4th of 2020. And that would actually be my motion.
This is BC, a second.
I'm sorry, can I clarify? It's 4 years or 2-year term?
It's a 4-year term. We thought it was a 2-year term also, but we're corrected by the registrar of voters. That's for area 5 only.
Right.
So Trustee Good, and just to clarify for the public, the period to register to run for candidacy was like June through August, right? It was a good 5, 6, or 8 weeks or so.
Yes.
And then after that, there was a period of a month up until September where there was no candidates. We all kind of knew that and we announced it. And still there was no candidates at that point. And then we had that September 3rd meeting, and then we just announced in advance that 2 weeks later on the September 18th meeting, we would close down for any candidates that might sign up in that case. And then by then we did get a total of 4 candidates, 4 or 5 candidates?
5.
Okay. 5. Okay, just clarifying.
Yeah, and what typically happens when an incumbent does not run, the time is extended beyond the original close date, and still no one submitted their papers to run.
Nope.
Trustee Sino.
I really appreciate the 4 people who have not been on the board submitting a letter and their resume. However, it does kind of bother me that the rest of us have gone through an election, which is not easy, and submitted that. So, and it was open, as you said, for a week longer than usual. And we will have openings in 2 years. So I support your motion, Mr. Good.
Thank you. Interestingly enough, Mr. Pace, his first exposure to the board was when he was an unsuccessful applicant for an open board position. And then he ran for election, and he's been with us for a wonderful 8 years. So if there's no further discussion, this is just to vote on the position. We're not voting on the position yet. We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, roll call, please. And Mr. Pace is not voting on, well, he can speak for himself.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
No.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Abstain.
Linda Pisano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And based on that motion, I would entertain motions to appoint one of the applicants.
This is BC. I move we appoint James Pace for Area 5 board member.
This is Linda. I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Despite Linux, yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
As much as I love James, I have to say no, just because he wasn't planning on running, and I wanted to open it up to other people that have applied.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace.
How about FreeBSD? I abstain.
Thank you. Linda Pisano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Pace. You're the only one who's a shoo-in for the next 4 years.
Thank you. I look forward to continuing to serve with the board. Thank you.
Next, we have item number 8C, second reading of updates to board policies, July 2020. This is an action item.
Thank you, Mr. Good. We did not receive any questions specific to these policies. We did receive some questions related, but not about these specific policies. So I'm here to recommend that the board approve the July 2020 board policy revisions.
Thank you. Are there any board questions or comments? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve these board policies.
This is Linda. I move approval.
BC, I second.
Have a motion and second. Roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Paceno.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item number D, variable term waiver request. Haley Romero, Gilroy High School Mathematics, grades 9 to 12. Mr. Winslow.
Thank you, President Good, members of the board, Superintendent Flores. Very happy to present to the board a request for a variable term waiver for Haley Romero, a mathematics teacher at Gilroy High, and I do want to plug a former Christopher alum, so very happy, homegrown math teacher at the high school, very proud of her. This request is a complication with COVID-19. Again, we're seeing a lot of new teachers struggling to take the required testing due to some of the shutdown. So she is definitely on track to start to become a full-term teacher in terms of credentialing. And so this waiver request would be for this year to get her through so she can bridge.
Any questions or comments?
One comment, Trustee Good.
Trustee Diaz?
Just one question. Is it implicit that she's actively, or the person is actively taking classes towards her credential?
With a variable term waiver, while it's implicit in terms as it's recommended and it's something that we ask all the candidates to do, it's not compelled under statutory law though. Again, this one's connected directly to the fact that she was taking tests, but unfortunately COVID-19 had shut down testing centers, so there's complications for that. But most of the people that we do get either provisional internships for or variable term waivers, they're already getting into programs, so.
Thank you. I know Haley as well. She's fantastic. I'm sure she'll do a great job. Maybe she'll help out with the track team.
We're excited to have her.
This is an action item.
This is Enrique. I move to approve.
BC, second.
We have a motion and second. Roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Paceno.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item number 9, board member reports. Are there any board member reports?
Trustee Good, I have one.
Trustee Diaz?
So I got to visit Rucker Elementary School this past Tuesday, and I came back and I realized that it was the first event that I've seen other board members in person since March 13th, since March 12th, actually, because that was our last board meeting. And I realized how long it's been. And it's just really exciting to work, to see the people that we're actively working on and working with, and not just virtually. But going to the campus was a little bittersweet, I should say. It was bitter in the sense that the students were there. That was the only bitter part, really, and that COVID has done all this to all of us. But I was really excited to see in person all the different little things, minutia that have been being worked on. So a little thanks to facilities and staff, and I got to see the YMCA and their program there, and I got to see some college students that were there working, but only working there because they're kind of taking a gap year as well. They're kind of realizing, at least for them, that this wasn't the choice for them to go back. So there's a lot of involvement and participation by community and staff and everybody there. But I was really glad to be on campus and see teachers in their classroom teaching everything the same except no students and in front of a computer this time, and making the best of it, like really not complaining, just kind of doing what they would have to do with what they have at the time that we're in. So just wanted to say that it was a good experience overall, and I appreciate the invitations from Linda and Dr. Flores and all you guys as well.
Thank you, Trustee Diaz. Are there any other board member reports? Trustee Paceno.
I want to thank Trustee Diaz for coming to Rucker. I have been to, I think, 5 school visits, and I always love going to school visits, seeing the kids. These are definitely bittersweet because you're looking at empty classrooms and empty playgrounds. But when the first school I went to was Christopher, and I've been to 4 elementary schools, and it gets better for me going multiple times. But the thing I want to just reiterate what Trustee Diaz said is, and I've said this all my life, I don't care how much money you gave me, I would not teach kindergarten or first grade for anything. And to see teachers engaging TK and K through a computer and having the kids engaged and excited, it's not the same, don't get me wrong, but it is far better than I had anticipated. And teachers are making the best of it, and we are learning how to help them do that easier. Not necessarily they're doing it better than they did last spring. And I liken it to everybody, and it's got to be really tough. If I've been teaching for 20 years and it's like your first year of teaching all over again, because you're learning everything new and how to get concepts across through a screen. And so it is teaching that first year. And those of us who remember that first year of teaching, I don't know about any of the rest of you, but I lost 10 pounds in the first month, my first year of teaching. So it is very stressful. Thank you to everybody that's made that happen. IT has done an incredible job. Our classified staff has done a great job, and the enthusiasm is great to see. I also was invited by Sally Enriquez to come into one of her classes, which I did, and that was really exciting. And I saw Channel C because it happened to be a Friday, and that was really eye-opening to me to see what schools are doing in order to try to engage kids and try to give them the high school experience virtually. And I'm really, really thankful for the kids' leadership as well as admin leadership. So a little long-winded, but it's a positive what's going on out there. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Trustee Pace.
Continuing on, this Rucker trip was very educational for all of us, clearly. A couple of things that stood out to me. I'm glad that the teachers have the choice whether or not they want to use their environment, which environment they're comfortable in, their home or the classrooms. Going in and seeing teachers in their classrooms, making the best of it and using technology, seeing them working with the kids was fascinating and uplifting. Also, I got to Rucker a little early and got to see the buses bringing in, I'm going to get the terminology wrong, but we have some students who come to campus to socially distance, remote access their classrooms that are based in Rucker, and seeing the buses come in, the protocols for keeping everyone separated and making sure that it was safe to bring them onto campus through a survey and getting them their breakfasts and keeping them all and then putting them into the classrooms in their small cohorts that are going on there. A lot of work has been done to make that happen, and trying to scale that up to the entire district would be mind-boggling, in my opinion. But seeing it successful, how it can be done on small scales was very, very interesting. And so kudos to everyone who's working so hard for all these kids. It was pretty eye-opening. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other board reports? All right, I would like to comment that right towards the end of Trustee Pace's report, Mr. Winslow was going like this. I didn't know if that was a signal Just kidding. Okay, no other board member reports. Upcoming and new referral agenda items. Any upcoming new or referral agenda items? Seeing none. Announcements. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Thursday, October 15th, 2020 via teleconference. Closed session will begin at 5:30 p.m., followed by a regular meeting at 7 p.m. The agenda will be available on the district's website by 5 p.m. on Friday, October 9th. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.